Well, here's one of my favorite techniques. It's just generating your own edge effect in Photoshop, and then we'll do a little bust out afterwards. I'm going to start out by creating a selection approximately where I want my edge to be, and this can actually be changed later if we want it to. But let's go to the Layers palette and create a blank layer, and I'm going to fill the selection with pixels. Just any pixels will do, because this layer will actually be thrown away here in just a minute. As a matter of fact, let's just do it with white pixels so you can see it a little more clearly. And I'm going to deselect the active selection and then run a displacement map. Under Filter, Distort, we'll go to Displace. At this point, when we tell it OK, what we want to do is to navigate into Photoshop's folder here. Let's go to Photoshop's folder. I'm looking for Photoshop. Give me a second. Here we go. Inside Photoshop's folder, we have a presets folder, and then there's a folder down here called Textures. So let's go ahead and select a texture to run as a displacement map onto this layer, and you can see what it's done to the edge. What I want to do is go ahead and run another filter or two, the displacement map. Let's just go back to the displacement map under Filter, Distort, and Displace. Select OK, and now we've already been in the Textures folder. We're back in there once again. We'll just select a different texture, and you can imagine now by selecting various textures you can get a very unique edge. So let's go with this. Sometimes I do three, but I'm really liking the way this edge looks. All we're going to do here is use this layer as a mask. So by holding down the Command key, we can click right onto the thumbnail icon of Layer 1, and this gives us an active selection. Once you have an active selection, we'll take Layer 1 and just actually throw it away. So on the background layer, I'm going to drag it down to the new layer icon, and it'll make an exact second copy. So at this point, since we have an active selection with the edge, by clicking on the Add Layer Mask icon, we've actually added the edge to this particular file. You can see that when I uncheck the visibility icon at the bottom, and you'll see it a little more clearly. When we go in and add a drop shadow here, let's go ahead and do that. Just a little spread in size here to get a separation. And if we select the background layer and generate a curve adjustment, we can add density between the two images or subtract density. I want to take the shadow point and pull it up the wall to subtract density, so we have this kind of look to this particular image, and as you can see now it's looking pretty decent. Back on the top layer where we have the image and the mask, right between the two, I'll zoom up for you for just a second here, we have the little icon that locks these two together. If we click on the little link here, it'll actually unlock the mask and the picture. And by doing that, we can then go to Free Transform under Edit Free Transform and actually change the location and size of this edged effect. So that's one of the options we have. Once we get this far, we can actually change the way that looks. Well, this is pretty much the edge effect look that you can get very easily right here with what's in Photoshop, and it's a lot of fun to do, and it creates a really spectacular look for certain types of images. I'm going to free transform this edge effect one more time, and I think that's pretty much what I want to get right there. Well, the next thing I want to show you is how to create a bust out look. And what I want to bust out of this image would be the feathers. You see the feathers in the background here. I want to bust them out of this particular edge. In order to do that, I'm actually going to have to separate the drop shadow from this particular layer. And to do that, all we have to do is go to Layer and then select Layer Style, which the drop shadow happens to be a layer style. And then all the way near the bottom here, there's something called Create Layer. What this will do, it'll create a layer with the drop shadow, removing it from this layer as a layer style. So now you can see we have a drop shadow that's on a layer by itself. We also have this curve adjustment that we've created for lightening up the separation between the two images. And by selecting both of these layers by holding the Shift key down, I'm going to put them in a group by clicking on the Add Group icon here. Holding the Shift key down puts the two layers in the group for me. And now we can create a mask just for this group. This will give us the ability to bust out the feathers here, but we're going to have to create a mask for those feathers to do that. So I'm turning off everything we've done, going to the original background, and we're going to look at the red, green, and blue channels. And what I'm looking for right now is trying to find a good separation between the feathers and the background, red, green, and blue. And I think the blue has the best. So by dragging the blue channel down to the new channel icon, it's going to create something called blue copy, which is actually an alpha channel. Now, if we go directly to layers, did I say layers? If we go directly to levels, what I'm going to do here is increase the contrast. I just want white and black, but I want to maintain as much detail in the feathers as possible. Let's take the highlight slider in toward the center of the histogram until we've pretty much got a white background here. And let's bring the shadow in because we want to keep detail in those feathers. That's important. I'll take the gamma slider and refine that just a little bit more. So that's looking pretty decent right there. This is actually enough to do the bust out look, because if you remember, we're just going to use a very small part of the feathers over here for that. So let's go ahead and use this as our mask, and I'm going to hold down the Command key, which is Control key on Windows, and click on Blue Copy, which is an alpha channel. This will give us an active selection. And while we're here, let's go ahead and go to Select and Inverse, because you can see the selections on the edge of the frame. I just want it right on the feathers here. At this point, we can go back to the surface of the image. I've clicked on RGB. And now let's go back to the Layers palette and click on our group mask. We'll go ahead and turn the visibility icon on here. And since we're in the group mask, all we have to do now is take the brush tool with black paint and paint on our feathers, and that will give us that bust out look. And the reason we've had to do all of this and put these feathers into this group here, or at least this shadow and adjustment layer, is because had we created this bust out look on the original mask, it would have come with the drop shadow that we don't want. That wouldn't have looked natural. So here we've been able to actually create this bust out look with the edges, and there you go.